What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm Chris Broussard. I got my man Greg Jennings along and Ryan Hollins to talk some hoops. Greg, let's get this thing started, man.
Let's do it. Let's start this morning with Anthony Davis. An MRI yesterday revealed a re-aggravation of the right Achilles injury for the brow. He'll take 2 to 3 weeks off, then be reevaluated. Lakers did say they'll be conservative with their big man's return. So, Broussard, I'll start with you. Is LeBron up to the challenge of carrying the Lakers with AD being sidelined?
Well, let's go with the timeline you talked about. If he's out until the All-Star break, that's 9 games. The schedule's not too tough. I mean, they do have Brooklyn, they do have Utah, Portland, Phoenix, but it's not an unmanageable schedule. And remember, they're 4-1 right now without AD. So if you're asking me, can LeBron keep them from falling from the 2nd seed where they are right now in the West to the 5th or 6th seed? Sure. I have no doubt that LeBron can carry that load. And I don't think he's going to have to go 40 minutes a night. I wouldn't do that. If I'm the Lakers, I'd keep him around 36 to 34 minutes a night. I wouldn't overburden LeBron during this stretch. But if you're asking me, can the Lakers win the title or even get to the finals without a healthy AD who is at the top of his game? I would say no way. That is too much to ask of LeBron James. Even as LeBron has been punching out Father Time every year, I don't see him being able to carry this Lakers team without another superstar. Not AD playing like a star, but AD playing like another superstar. I would take the Clippers over the Lakers in this scenario. Utah, I'm still not sold on as far as the playoffs. But I would take Brooklyn over the Lakers in that scenario, and maybe even Philly if AD can't be himself. So LeBron can, hold down the fort for a few weeks while AD's gone, but he's going to need AD to be at his absolute best for them to win the championship.
Chris, I'm glad that you clarified right there, because one of the questions was, can he do it in the regular season? Yes, I agree. But when it comes to the postseason and LeBron James, I agree. This is going to be a tough carry for him. Why do you say that? In the NBA now, you win with star power. If we hadn't noticed what Brooklyn's doing over there, as you brought out, arguably the biggest offensive trio that we have ever seen play the game of basketball. That's what's going on over there in Brooklyn. The Clippers are much improved. They're back to their normalcy. They're not in the national media night in and night out. They're just kind of going out and playing good basketball right now. So you'd be asking too much of a load of LeBron James. When you think about Anthony Davis, what does he do well, Greg? What does he do well, Chris? It's not just his scoring, not just his rebounding. Anthony Davis, with his athleticism, covers so much ground defensively. And on the offensive end, he literally spreads you thin. You've got to play from rim to 3-point line. He's arguably the best finisher in basketball. He can step back, hit the deep three. He can roll to the rim. He can short roll you. He can post up a smaller mismatch. And in the NBA Finals, I believe that Anthony Davis really came into his own. So can LeBron James make it through the playoffs without Anthony Davis as dynamic as he was? I agree, Chris. I do not think that he can do it with the firepower and the way guys have loaded up in the NBA today.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, but I think we sometimes forget. Yes, LeBron is getting older, but this is what he has always done. He's always had to bear the brunt, carry the load, if you will. This is how he's been built. He's built for this in moments like this. However, in saying that, I do agree with you guys as far as the playoffs, but this is why they acquired Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell, these guys who you got Montrezl Harrell coming off the 6th Man of the Year award and the runner-up being Dennis Schroeder. And you got these guys not just because of what they do coming off the bench. Obviously, Schroeder's in a starting position, playing more minutes. You're asking him to do something that alongside players that he's never played with before at this caliber, when LeBron and an AD. But these guys are here configured on this roster to step up in cases just like this. So for the regular season, it's not even so much about LeBron carrying the load. It's can he make sure that these guys step up to the playing ability that is needed for them to not slip in this stat running race when you look at the NBA statistics and standings. So I'm not concerned about LeBron. LeBron, at his age, guys like LeBron and Tom Brady and these type of caliber players, elite mindset players, they always find a way to get it done. So I truly believe in LeBron, but it's more about his leadership and what can he do to provide the guys around him to play at a higher level. That's what's most important. That's what's going to help him carry this load. Not about the amount of minutes that he puts in or has to play or the amount of points that he has to score. It's not just solely about those things. And Ryan, to your point about Anthony Davis and what he brings, it's the defensive mentality. When we talked about this team earlier in the season and they were slipping defensively, who was that catalyst to get them back on track? It was Anthony Davis. And so, yes, offensively, and his numbers are down, but AD, but when you look at his numbers, they're down a little bit this year, but defensively is where he is the guy that makes this thing work for this Lakers team.
Here's another thing about this little stretch run without AD. This could solidify LeBron as the true front runner for the MVP race. I have him number one on my ballot right now. I know it's early. I've got him slightly ahead of Joel Embiid, who's been missing a lot of games, or at least 6 games of the 27, 28 that Philly's played. If LeBron can lead the Lakers to 6-3 even, but especially 7-2 or better during these 9 games without AD, I think that would place him firmly at the top of the MVP race, which, look, I know it's all about championships for LeBron, but he's a human being. He would love to win an MVP award in his 18th season, which no players really come close to doing. So that'd be another feather in his cap. But if the Lakers go, say, 4-5 and really struggle during this stretch, and it's clear that LeBron can't carry them without AD, then that would bring him back to the pack, maybe put Embiid, or I expect Nikola Jokic to make a nice run at this as Denver starts to win more games. So I think that would bring LeBron back to the pack and could hurt his chances of winning his 5th MVP award. Ryan?
See, Chris, I agree, but I see an even bigger urgency right now. If I'm Rob Pelinka in that Lakers front office, what do you have to do? You have to get into the trade market. You've got to be in the buyout market. You've got to find your next Dwight Howard. This team is not good defensively. Last year, you may rival the Lakers team last year with some of the greatest Lakers defense in history. As you heard me, some of the greatest Lakers defense in history. If they can't defend, and you've got to make LeBron James outscore you at his age, that's not how he wants to play. And even with AD, I'm gonna tell you one thing. The Lakers better find a way to play some defense. Nikola Jokic is serious. If somehow, as you brought up, Chris, Joel Embiid is in the playoffs, they don't have anybody to guard him, okay? And then if you got the firepower of the Nets, and it's not just that you can't score with them, it's the paint. If the Nets are having a field day in the Lakers paint, it's a problem. There's no Big E. There's no Howard in there. I played with Marc Gasol, former defensive player of the year, but the thing about Marc Gasol doesn't have the same legs, and he was never a a great shot blocker. He was more from an intelligence standpoint. And Trez is improved defensively, but he's not a stopper. So they still need something else, even with Anthony Davis. But I agree, Chris. We're going to touch on it a little later in the show. This could very well set up LeBron James for MVP. You're just waiting for that moment where you get behind and be like, yo, he's MVP because of this. And if LeBron James gets busy now with no AD, we can, look at what he did without Anthony Davis. And LeBron James is very aware, Greg. He's very aware of it. I played against LeBron, quite arguably the most aware athlete I've ever played against. He knew every scouting report, every player, every tendency. He knew a young Ryan Hollins, man. He was on there screaming out, hey, man, hey, keep him away from the rim. I'm like, dog, didn't nobody even know Ryan Hollins at the time. LeBron is like, he's a right-hand driver. Like, what? Like, I'm not on the scouting report, bro. Stop hating.
I love the energy, Ryan. All right, we will get back to this later. There's no doubt about it. But let's talk about the NBA Super Six. $25,000 at stake, folks. It's up for grabs tonight. Download the app and play for your chance to win. More First Things First coming your way.
Hey, First Things First listeners, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com.
Elimination Chamber combatants collide when Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro battle Jey Uso, King Corbin, and Sami Zayn in a 6-man tag team match. It's an all-new Friday Night SmackDown, live at 8 Eastern on Fox.
All right, we've got former Pro Bowl linebacker LeVar Arrington in the house talking some Russell Wilson. The report came out yesterday that the Seahawks will, in fact, not trade Russ. This despite the quarterback's frustration with the poor protection plan that Seattle has for him. Greg, are you buying that the Seahawks can make this work with Russell Wilson?
I am buying that the Seahawks can make this work because they have no other choice and no other option but to make it work. You don't have one of the best quarterbacks in all of football and not try your best and not give every effort to make it work. Now, does that mean they are going to win? No, it does not, because I truly believe that when you look at the way this team has been configured and when you look at from the coaching and what side of the ball Pete Carroll gives the most attention to, it's that defensive side of the ball. And then his style that he wants to play with offensively is more of a managing perspective. And so that's where Russell Wilson is really at odds. And when he talks about I need more protection, he wants to throw the ball. He wants to be in charge. He wants to be the catalyst that they ride when we look at their offense, not just running the ball. It doesn't mean that he doesn't want to turn around and have an effective running game. But when you have a player that is as elite as Russell Wilson, he is more than just a managing quarterback. And that's how he entered into the National Football League. But that is not who he is of date. He is a guy that can put the ball in the end zone that you can ride with, and then you put pieces around him to make him better and make the team ultimately better. LeVar, let me hear what you got.
Well, I'm buying it, but my take on this is really not about Russell Wilson being at odds with the Seattle Seahawks. This is about Russell Wilson asserting himself in conversations like what Aaron Rodgers was a part of a year ago. Remember, this is a man that has played at an elite level for all these years, and yet doesn't sniff getting the MVP. He's got to start his campaign at some point in time. And if he had to use collateral damage with his offensive line and the offensive protection of what he had going on this season, that's what he's going to do. Nothing personal. It's just business. He's fighting for legacy. We heard legacy being mentioned when talking about Russell Wilson. So we could talk about creating a run game, figuring out what's going to go on defense. But this team did win the NFC West this year, by the way, y'all. So it's not like it's not working. They just have to do a little bit more, state anything that wasn't of the obvious. I think this is more so about getting the conversation on Russell Wilson for a bigger play at the table in terms of recognition of his talents.
Yeah, I agree.
Bad,
Look,
Chris.
they got no choice but to make this work. Yeah, so what you do is you make your future Hall of Fame quarterback happy. It's as simple as that. From what the reports are saying, he went to the Seahawks and tried to talk to them privately about getting him some better pass protection, about making the offense a little bit more innovative, and he didn't like the response that he got. So then he went public, and I think we need to get used to more football players going public with their gripes. Because I think Russell Wilson is looking at an Aaron Rodgers and saying, you don't get much better than Aaron Rodgers, but he hasn't gotten close to a Super Bowl in the last decade, and that's because the team hasn't built around him. Then he looks at Tom Brady and all the guys he brought with him to Tampa and how the team accommodated him, and they win a Super Bowl. I think Russ kind of feels like the Seahawks might be content just being relevant. They got a Super Bowl. You know, that's a city where the fan base is rabid, and they're going to always be rabid as long as you're a relevant team getting to the playoffs. And Russ is saying, no, I am not going to be satisfied with that. He's looking at Pat Mahomes and the innovation that he has in his offense. He's looking at how Matt LaFleur helped rejuvenate Aaron Rodgers' career. And he's saying, we got to get a little bit more creative. DK Metcalf talked about it after the season. It was run with the play action, throw it deep, and teams figured them out. First 8 games of the season, the Seahawks had 30 points or more 7 times. The last 8 games of the season, they did it once. So those are the things Russ is talking about. Obviously, they got to shore up the offensive line. He told Colin Cowherd he wants to play 10 to 15 more years. Not with that offensive line. Have you seen Cam Newton? All right, if Russ keeps taking these types of hits, he knows that he's not going to be able to play another decade. So I think Seattle's got to do whatever it takes to make him happy. And I think ultimately that'll make the team better, Greg.
I hear you, and I agree to an extent. But the reason why I talk about, do they really want to win? It's not that, yes, LeVar, they won the NFC West. Yes, that's great. But as Chris mentioned, yeah, they're going to always be relevant. And that is good for a lot of players. But when you are one of the best in the business, that is not it. To your point, LeVar, about legacy, you have to start to stack those successes. And he has already won a Super Bowl early in his career, got to a second, and then has not sniffed anything else. You talked about Aaron Rodgers and what he's not been able to do. Russell, the league, not just from a players and coaches and schematic standpoint, is a copycat league, but even when it comes to players, they look and see what players have done, what they haven't done, what organizations have done around them, and they want those types of things done. Once you've established yourself in this league, you have to take these opportunities and seize them. LeVar, you know and I know, when you play in this league behind that mask, specifically at that quarterback position, if you don't speak up and say what you want, it will not happen.
Yeah, well, I think that's the constant evolution of technology and the ability to control your own narrative, right? I mean, that's what Russell Wilson is doing. That's what many of these players are doing these days. Tom Brady, you name it. Everybody is leveraging the platforms that are out there for them to be influencers. They can actually reach a larger audience than the team sometimes. So you got to believe that those are the things that are going to take place. But, you know, one thing that you said, Broussard, that I want to address that I think is pretty interesting is the idea of coming out and talking about that our offense was figured out. We were predictable. It's interesting because when you look at the best teams in the league, you look at Kansas City this year, they were predictable. I mean, if you looked at what they did, they ran jet sweeps. They moved you around. They did trickeration coming back to the center of the field. They like crossing. They like slanting. They like sitting in the center of the field. And no one could figure it out, even though it's not a complex idea of how you run your offense. I think the conversation that has to ensue and take place for Russell Wilson, along with the rest of the core guys that are on that Seattle Seahawks team, is to look within. All of the greatest players I've been around, I don't have the opportunity to say or boast that I was in a Super Bowl, but I have played with plenty of Hall of Famers. And the one trait that I always saw when I was in the locker room with guys like Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders and Darryl Green and Champ Bailey, the preparation and the willingness to look at themselves and how that applies to what their performance is going to be and how that plays out for the performance of the team has to be the most important aspect of what it is that's taking place, especially as a leader. So I would urge and say, don't always be pointing the finger talking about it was the game plan. We were too predictable. Well, you know what? Randy Moss was predictable going downfield. You know what happened? Randy Moss still caught the ball. You know why? Because Randy Moss wanted that ball. So he took that ball. So if I'm DK Metcalf, get the ball. I don't care if they know the play. If I'm Russell Wilson, figure it out. Don't take the sacks. Some of those sacks are holding the ball sacks, right? So to me, I want to see Russell Wilson come to the table and make his team better. I get helping him, and I believe in that. Voice your opinion. You had the platforms. But, Chris, when people know your plays, they know your plays. That's what you get paid to do as a defensive coordinator and as a defense is figure those things out. It's up to the offense to adjust and still be able to have those successes.
Well, LeVar, I am wondering, to your point, how the offensive line in Seattle reacts to this. Now, as an observer, I had no problem with what Russell did and what he said because he is right. You're right. Obviously, he holds the ball. He extends plays, so some of those sacks are on him. However, he's been sacked 394 times since he entered the league. That's more than any other quarterback since the merger about 50 years ago. So he was right. He was right that they have to protect him better. I'm wondering, does the offensive line resent that and get an attitude with Russ? And does that hurt them going forward? Or do they just take it in stride and say, look, we do have to do better. We got a Hall of Fame quarterback that we have to protect. And more importantly, the front office has to go out and get the players that can give Russ better protection, Greg.
I get that, and I hear you. And I don't think the offensive line can take the stance of resenting the way Russell Wilson displayed and conveyed his feelings. That it's we all see it. And LeVar, I get what you're saying about he got to make guys better, but he has to have an opportunity to do
better
that.
Guys.
And for me, I don't care what situation you are in. When you know that you've done so much, and I'm not saying that he can't do more, but when you know that you've done a lot and you still don't feel like you're being supported, you have to say something, and you're going to say something. It's hard to continue to move about the same way when you know it's more than just you doing your part. It's other pieces. This is the ultimate team sport. You and I both know it. And if A doesn't connect with B, then C will never happen. And so for me, Russell Wilson, it starts with him speaking his mind. But we know he has to play well, but so does the other pieces and parts around him. And that's all he's saying. Give me more support, and I will give you even more than what I've given you. I will have the opportunity to give you more than what I've given you.
Sales job.
Well, all right. Speaking of giving a lot, Kyrie Irving dropped 40 last night in Sacramento. Was that the best performance of the night? We're talking hoops next on First Things First.
Hey, First Things First listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to First Things First.
We got Ryan Hollins back with us, but it's time for drawing a blank. The stars were shining last night in 7 games around the association, including Kyrie Irving, who went for a 40-piece in the win. Chris, I'm going to start with you. The best performance in the NBA last night was blank.
I got a surprise for you. How about Julius Randle of the New York Knicks? I haven't talked Knicks on TV in like 5 years, all right? So I'm giving them some love. Julius Randle, 44 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, hit 7 threes in a big win over Atlanta. He's making a bid for the All-Star game, and the Knicks have won 3 straight, 5 of 7. And guys, they are currently the 6th seed in the East. And you know what that would mean? A delicious first-round matchup with the Brooklyn Nets. That would be great for Metro New York. I couldn't wait to see that if it happens.
I like it. Another former Laker. Well, I'm going with a former Laker as well, but he's out west with the Utah Jazz, Jordan Clarkson. And he dropped, guess what, a 40-piece. And I'll top you on the threes made. 8 for 13 from three-point land. He was special last night alongside Donovan Mitchell. This Utah Jazz team, you talk about standings, Chris, they're number 1 in the West right now because of play of guys like Jordan Clarkson and Bogdanovich and so many other pieces that we know they have. They have a great team with great depth, and this is a team that a lot of people may want to pay attention to making a deep run in the Western Conference.
Hey, fellas, you guys are bugging right now. We're not going to talk about Ben Simmons having a 42 ball and Greg, they won. Ben Simmons won a game 42, 12, and 9. And with no Joel Embiid, they knocked off at least for right now, the best team in the NBA. And Ben Simmons last night showed us that, hey, man, I can get busy without the big fella. So, hey, man, I am exactly right now with
I think they lost, right?
It's okay.
Oh, they lost?
It's okay, Chris. He doesn't know any better.
I read my stats wrong. I read them wrong. Hey, he got busy, though.
Ben was nice, but they lost.
He got busy, though.
I'm with you. He was nice, but they lost. So the Lakers will be without AD for the foreseeable future. Excuse me. Yes, re-aggravated his Achilles injury. So, Chris, the Lakers, other than LeBron, what other Lakers other than LeBron need to step up in AD's absence?
Well, look, I obviously know one player is going to be as great as AD, but I'm going to point to Kyle Kuzma. They need other guys to step up as well. But Kyle Kuzma, he's actually been playing pretty well lately after kind of a slow up and down start to the season. He's averaged about 14 points over his last several games, shooting the ball better. I think Kyle Kuzma, because of his size, they need him to give them more to kind of make up for what they are going to lose with AD.
Yeah, for me, it's not just one Laker that needs to step up. When you're trying to fill the shoes of a guy like Anthony, and again, like I said earlier, it's why you acquired Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell. These are 2 guys that are more than capable of putting and producing points on the offensive end and then defending. Montrezl Harrell, mentioning earlier, he has to be better on both ends of the court because of how huge AD is on both ends of the court. But I like this team, and it's those 2 guys, in my opinion, that have to come to the playing table.
I hear you, Greg. But it's all about Trez, man. In his 6-man year, I worked analyst for the Clippers. He averaged 18 points and 6 rebounds per game. Trez has the type of athleticism and playing style to bring the Lakers what they need and what they're going to be missing without AD. That's a guy who can finish those dimes coming from LeBron James and give somewhat of an interior presence right now. So if it's anybody, Trez can fill in and give you 20 and 10, either off the bench or potentially as a starter if needed. So I'm going to look to Trez to fill AD's absence for right now.
Okay, a number of stars set out last night as their teams marched on. So, Chris, the player that set out last night that is most crucial to his team's success is who?
Man, you can see from the graphic, and we didn't even put KD on there, a lot of great players sat out. And it was tough because without any of these stars, their teams aren't winning the championship. But I'm going to go with Joel Embiid as the most critical guy to his team's success. Embiid, we all know, having a great season. The Sixers are 1-5 without him. 1-5. I said earlier, the Lakers 4-1 without Anthony Davis. The Sixers lose 5 out of 6 games without Embiid. Their net rating is 16 points worse when Joel Embiid is not on the floor. So he clearly is the straw that stirs the drink, I should say, with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, I'm with you there. When you look across the league, there are a lot of great players, but Joel Embiid impacts his team more than most guys because of what he provides on both ends of the court. And he's arguably having his best season as a pro. And so when you look at that, you need him to be healthy and on the court when you're going up against those elite teams in this NBA. And with Joel Embiid sidelined, it just takes away a lot. And we saw last night in a loss what Ben Simmons had to do, but they still lost.
Greg, my man, hey, fellas, hold your mans accountable. It's all good. Hey, man, hey, but this right here, y'all both got it wrong. It's all about Kevin Durant. The next 3 games, okay, the Brooklyn Nets have the Lakers, the Clippers, and Phoenix coming up. Yeah, them boys could breeze right past the Kings, but they're going to need Kevin Durant, the easy money sniper, to potentially get back in the lineup. So maybe he misses the game versus Phoenix, but you're going to need him if you're going to get any type of win versus the Lakers and Clippers, or if that to make a run for a championship. You don't do this without the unicorn, baby. You got to have Kevin Durant back.
Okay, we're just over a month away from the trade deadline. Kyle Lowry, one of the names that could be on the move. But Chris, the biggest name to watch at the trade deadline is...
Yeah, I mean, Lowry's certainly a good one. There's no doubt about it. But I'm going to go with Andre Drummond, all right? In Cleveland, we know he's sitting out right now until they can move him. But with his contract, he makes $28 million this year. He won't be easy to deal, because the team may feel like they got to re-sign him, or you just got to put together a lot of money to match that salary. And here's the thing. If he's not traded, then he could hit the buyout market, and that's what a team like Brooklyn is waiting for. You bring Andre Drummond in there, he doesn't really help the defense, but he certainly helps your rebounding, which gives you more possessions. And he is a big body. So now I've got DeAndre Jordan and Andre Drummond to bang up against a guy like Joel Embiid and other big men they may meet in the playoffs. So I'm watching Andre Drummond, and I got to be honest, I'm hoping he doesn't get traded so he winds up in Brooklyn after being bought out.
For me, it's Blake Griffin. And as a Michigander, born and raised and a Piston fan, like, you hate to see stuff like this, but both the team and Blake Griffin, they've agreed. So he's going to be sidelined. He's not going to even suit up until they figure something out, a scenario that best suits them as an organization moving forward and Blake Griffin as a player. So when you look at what he's been able to do over the course of his career, we know his stat line. We know who he is. And when we talk about big names, there really isn't a bigger name than Blake Griffin. Ryan?
fellas, I'm not mad at you at all. I'm not mad at what you're saying, but this is all about Bradley Beal. And I know what you're saying, Chris, that Bradley Beal is not on the trade market. And I talked to some front office execs that said, no, he's not being looked at. But in all reality, guess what, guys? Washington, that situation in Washington isn't getting any better. And the one thing that we're going to agree on right now, the NBA championship is somewhat wide open with Anthony Davis's injury, Kevin Durant coming back off of injury, and Bradley Beal could be a piece. It may take a multi-team deal that could get a desperate team that's willing to throw the house, maybe like a Miami or a Houston or somebody like that wants to get a mix, or a Golden State that will make a play for Bradley Beal. So right now he's not on the market, but we know this thing is not going to last too much longer with Bradley Beal in Washington.
All right, we got tonight a 6-game slate in the association, including the Bucks, Blazers, and Pelicans. So, Chris, the players you're most looking forward to watch tonight are who?
Believe it or not, I'm going with James Harden. Now, I'm loving watching James Harden at point guard. His dimes, obviously he's still giving you 20-plus points, shooting the three, running that offense to perfection. But here's the deal. They are facing Phoenix tonight, and that means James Harden could be matching up with Chris Paul. And I know Kyrie will be on him a lot too. But these 2 point guards, they played together in Houston. It didn't end well. We all know that when they split. So I want to see them go at it. I think Harden is making a case that he's the best point guard in the league, and I want to see what CP3 has to say about that.
Okay, Chris, I like where you're going. I like where you're going because I'm going in that same game. But it's not James Harden, it's Devin Booker. And when you look at the book, man, you can book him for getting buckets every time he touches that rock. Averaging about 32 points over the last 4 games. He's an instant night out, and he's been doing it all of his career. We just haven't had the opportunity to watch him like we're going to watch him tonight. And so that's my guy that I'm going to watch, the D-Book man.
Fellas, this is all about my main man, Giannis Antetokounmpo, man. I thought he'd be competing for his 3rd MVP. They lost 3 straight up there in Milwaukee. Yes, you heard me, 3 straight. They've got Toronto coming up on a back-to-back, and this is a hungry Raptors team that was playing mediocre basketball to start, but is making a push with a sense of urgency to jump into the playoff race, and they have. But, man, Giannis going to have to figure some things out, man. He's been over there taking some L's for a 2-time MVP. Man, we got to see what's going on.
I love it.
That's real.
Well, Ryan, we'll see you back in a bit. We got the Daytona 500 champ, Michael McDowell. He joins us next on First Things First.
Sunday on Fox, the NASCAR Cup Series returns to Daytona as Chase Elliott looks to defend his win at the 14-turn race course. All the action starts Sunday at 3 Eastern right here on Fox and on the Fox Sports app. All right, speaking of Daytona, fresh off a crazy Daytona 500 finish, we've got champion Michael McDowell joining us now. Good morning, Michael, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It's unbelievable. I mean, you just called me a champion. Can you believe that?
I can believe it, man. It was a great race. You definitely came through. Tell us, where were your emotions at after winning the Daytona 500 for your first Cup Series victory?
I mean, just the initial raw emotion, you're just overwhelmed. I mean, you don't even know what to do. You're just got so much flowing through you, that excitement. And then shortly after that, maybe an hour or two after that, you just are thankful, man. I'm so thankful that I get to race in NASCAR and be one of 40 of the drivers that get to compete on Sunday. To write my name in the history books as a Daytona 500 champion. I mean, it's just overwhelming and humbling. So the emotions have been all over the place, from just pure joy and excitement to just gratitude and thankfulness. It's just been an awesome, 48 hours.
So Michael, like, if we're being honest, a lot of us spectators watching weren't expecting you to win But how was the preparation, and what was that preparation like, and how confident were you leading up to Sunday?
Well, Daytona's always been a very good track for our race team and for myself. And, I think I have 7 top 10s there. And so we're probably not in the conversation a lot to win the race, but we've been in that top 5 position. And that's what it's all about, especially at Daytona, is you have to be in position on that last lap. You got to be in those top 2 or 3 rows. And I knew that we had a good plan and we had a good strategy. We worked with our Ford teammates. Our Ford Mustang was super fast that night. And so we knew that we had, the ingredients to get into position and come to the white flag. We were in that 3rd spot, with my Ford teammates. Felt like we had, a good plan, and it just all worked out. I mean, I came off of turn 2, had a big run, pushed Brad Keselowski. Joey Logano blocked the pass. Brad and Joey got together. The seas parted, and I came right through the middle. And so, I felt confident that we could be fast and we could run up there. You always plan on winning. I mean, I show up at the racetrack. That's what I go there to do, just like, the 40 other drivers. But, the reality of it actually happening is so small. And so to finally do it, it's just amazing.
Well, Michael, what does a win like this mean for your legacy in the sport? I mean, you're joining all these legendary names on that winner's roll.
Yeah, that's the part that's so humbling. When I think about myself, I'm like, man, I don't think they should write my name next to a Petty or an Andretti or an Earnhardt. I don't belong in that conversation. And so, to know that we will be and forever a Daytona 500 champion and to write our name into the history books, it's been a long journey for me, and that makes it so worthwhile.
Michael, you've been a good driver on the super speedway track going into Sunday, but what makes you so good at the high banked runs and different things? And just talk about this experience. And I see it all over your face, like the smile, the elation, like just talk and allude to that.
Well, I think what makes me run well at those racetracks is when I first got into NASCAR, I really did not like the super speedways. It's a unique style of racing, and I didn't enjoy it. And so what I did to kind of reverse that is I just became a student. I started studying those races, and I found a trend. And the trend was the same 10 guys are at the end of these races every single year. And so I started studying what they did and how they approached the race. And I watched video and I looked at data. And I just put the time and effort into it to try to figure out what makes Denny Hamlin so good at Daytona. What makes Joey Logano so good at at Daytona, and what do these guys do and what are they thinking? And so I just try to put myself in their shoes and become a student. And that was a game changer for me. And as far as, the emotion, what makes this so rewarding is I've lost 350 times. And I've only won once. And so that grind and that persistence and, the ups and downs that it's taken to finally get a win, and not just a win, a Daytona 500 win, just makes it worthwhile. It's just unbelievable.
Speaking of the grind and patience, there was a 5-hour, 40-minute rain delay. We saw guys going to Panda Express, McDonald's to get food for themselves and their crew. What did you do to stay calm during that delay?
That's where experience kicks in. I've seen these rain delays. Our sport's not new to this. Being an outdoor sport, when it rains, it's tough for us. But, for me, I try to stay in the game. I try to stay focused and not let, the energy fall too low. And so I just hung out, made a sandwich, had a little bit of a time to study. Even though we only did a handful of laps, I wanted to see what happened in that wreck and how to avoid it. And, you just try to stay mentally in the game. And as soon as you kind of put your guard down, that's normally when they say, all right, back to your cars, and you kind of, scramble. So I try to stay pretty focused, during that time.
Michael, so there are so many of us that aren't drivers professionally like yourself, and we feel like we are the best drivers on the road, but like you obviously have in so many in your field an elitism to what you do, but to avoid any wrecks or any and everything in such an unpredictable race. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's so much reaction and instinct and hand-eye coordination. And, you know, a big part of it is your vision and where you're looking. And if you're looking at the wreck, you are going to drive right in it. And when this happened right here, I'm looking at that hole. I'm not looking at Brad. I'm not looking at Joey. I'm not looking at where their cars are spinning. I am looking at that hole and where I can go to miss it. And, you know, your eyes really determine what you're going to do. And so you have to be laser focused, and you can't lose that focus, not even for a millisecond.
Michael, congratulations again, man. Thank you for waking us up early with us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Hey, thank you guys so much. Congrats. It's awesome. I can't tell you how cool it is to be a Daytona 500 champion.
We can see it in your face, believe me.
Yes.
That's
Thank
great.
You guys.
All right, we're talking Anthony Davis next and his injury. How does it impact the Lakers' title chances? That's next on First Things First.
Elimination Chamber combatants collide when Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro battle Jey Uso, King Corbin, and Sami Zayn in a six-man tag team match. It's an all-new Friday Night SmackDown, live at 8 Eastern on Fox.
All right, we're back with LeVar Arrington talking Carson Wentz. The latest report out of Philly says Wentz's preference to play for the Colts over the Bears is what could be delaying a deal getting done. So, Greg, should Wentz do everything in his power to get to Indy instead of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's his place of choice. And the reason why is because of the head coach, Frank Wright, and his relationship having already been established with him being the offensive coordinator in Philly the year that they went on that Super Bowl run. And so when I look at that, though, when I look at Carson Wentz and his struggles, and I'm not going to talk about how much in depth he played this year, but mentally, when you're struggling, and we've all been athletes, we all have had moments where we've struggled with mechanics or with whatever the case may be. And you have that someone that can speak something into your ear to where your confidence now starts to resurface and your belief becomes more prevalent. That's what Carson Wentz needs. And I believe that's who Frank Wright has been and was for him. And that's why he wants to go back to that situation, because he knows a guy like Frank Wright, he believes in what my abilities are. And even when I'm struggling, he still believes in what my abilities are. And I think when you have a guy who's struggled the way that Carson Wentz has struggled, that's what he's going for. And yes, the situation is great. It's laid up. We saw who was the quarterback this year with the Colts. I'm drawing a blank. Phillip Rivers. Yes. Phillip Rivers. My fault. We saw Phillip Rivers over there this year, and he had a success to a degree. But can he take them to the next level is the question. And I don't believe Carson Wentz can do that. You already have Jacoby Brissett on a roster that he is a very viable option at stepping in and knowing the offense, knowing the guys around him, and really getting them some productive wins and taking them into the playoffs. I don't think Carson Wentz personally should go there just because it's going to feel good for his ego and his psyche. He needs to go to a situation that is surrounding him, that he's going to have to compete, that he's going to have to find that dog that we talked about earlier, Chris, and get that fire back, because I think he's lost a lot of that.
Listen, should Carson Wentz do everything in his power? I mean, let's be real here. His power is in his bank account, GJ. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real here. If he goes to the Colts, it's a great opportunity. It's a great situation. As former head coach, we know he had his best season under Wright. But here's the thing. If he goes there and he plays poorly with a team that has a running attack, that has a few nice receivers out there, that has a really, really good defense, and he doesn't play well again, right? What does that look like? I don't know. But is there going to be more pressure because of all of the elements that the Colts have? Sure, there's going to be that pressure because of the connection to the coach and the talent on the team, and an old fogey like Phillip Rivers was able to come in there and have a great year this past season. But make no mistake about it, that man is $58 million against that in dead cap money, or dead money to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think it's something like 20-some plus million, 22, 25. It's some crazy number in terms of what his cap number is for the Philadelphia Eagles. If I'm Carson Wentz, I should be doing everything to just sit back, chill, do what I need to do with my body, make sure mentally I'm where I want to be, because right now you're playing with house money because you have a team that doesn't necessarily want you and is trying to, address trading you and figure out who's going to take this big nut of a contract that you have. Your contract is really all you need to be concerned about right now. Worry about football when you figure out the next go.
He definitely got his money, as you said, LeVar, but I disagree with you guys. I think Indy is the place he needs to go. I think, first of all, he needs a completely fresh start, a totally fresh start where he can get away from Philadelphia and all the residue that was on him from his time there. He really only had the one great run there, and then from that point on, it was downhill. Going to a Frank Wright, a friendly face, I believe they share like a Christian faith. They got a good relationship. That might be the guy that can get in Wentz's mind and get him on the right path again. LeVar, you mentioned all the benefits there, the good defense, the running game, Jonathan Taylor, they got some receivers. They could be a good team. He's in a whole different conference. And you are correct. I'm not guaranteeing it. Maybe Carson Wentz never gets back to being a good quarterback. Maybe he's done. But I think Indianapolis is the best chance he has of reclaiming what he used to be. If I'm Carson Wentz, I want nothing to do with Chicago. Not unless Nick Foles, who's in Chicago right now, is a part of the trade. So if Chicago gives up, some draft picks and Nick Foles and sends him back to Philly, which does make sense. Because, Foles is a hero in Philadelphia. He's got a statue. He could back up Jalen Hurts. And if Hurts, doesn't perform well, you throw Nick Foles in. He's great as a backup, not as a starter, but he's great as a backup. That could work for Philly. But if Foles stays in Chicago, I see no reason for them to bring Carson Wentz there. Because I think what bothered him in Philadelphia, part of it, was having to look over his shoulder. Having the players clearly prefer Nick Foles, or at least many of them prefer Nick Foles to him. Having to worry about the guy that won a Super Bowl when you couldn't, taking your job. And I think that would all be in his mind again if he went to Chicago. So, Greg, I don't think he should go to the Bears at all. Now, if Foles is gone, I'm fine with the Bears because defense, all that other stuff. But not with Foles there, no way.
LeVar, I'm going to ask you this because you've been on that field and you've played. Like, does it feel like Carson Wentz is running away from a situation? Like, because as a player, like you don't win a Super Bowl, or you win a Super Bowl, but you're not the reason why. So naturally, when whether it's injury or you just aren't there, you're a guy that's backing up. You want to prove to an organization and to the team within that locker room that you are that guy. And I just feel like Carson Wentz hasn't been able to do that, and he's running away from a chance and an opportunity to compete. Like, that's what we do. Chris, you talked about him looking over his shoulder. Shoot, LeVar, when you were in the locker room, did they draft another linebacker? Wherever you were, whether it was every year. So this is something we have to do. What is your take on Carson Wentz not stepping up to the plate and competing like every other player has to do in this National Football League?
Well, I think Carson Wentz, outside of the poor play that he has had, I mean, he can lean on the fact that this is a team that really has been in disarray due to injury, due to quarterback controversy, due to a lot of different things. So, Greg, when I look at Carson Wentz, where he's at right now, Carson Wentz isn't taking in my opinion, he's not taking too much self-accountability for how poor his play has been. And he can lean on the fact that there's information that can back his poor play that is outside of his control. So when I look at Carson Wentz right now, I look at him as playing what would be considered a passive-aggressive approach to what's taking place. Why? Because he's already been rewarded with the extension, which, by the way, if you paid attention to the contract, it doesn't kick in until this season, right? So they haven't had to pay him that money. It kicks in 2021 season. So I'm looking at myself like I got rewarded for being an elite. I'm getting the short end of the stick of an organization that ends up firing their head coach, that had a poor season, that has Hall of Fame caliber linemen who aren't playing. There has been so many different changes during the course of my time here that it's not that I'm running, and I'm not going to allow for people to think that I'm running from the situation. You guys just aren't willing to do what it is you guys need to do for me to have success. I.e., if we take the example of Russell Wilson earlier in the show, does Carson Wentz come out and say, y'all need to build a better team around my talent so people can see how good I am again? Or do y'all trade me? And obviously, Jalen Hurts, the situation with everything with Carson Wentz, it's an easier discussion to try to say to trade him, to sell, but I don't think that it's going to be an easy result. So I don't, Power and trying to get to Chicago or to Indy versus going to Chicago, I don't look at them as running. I look at it as it's a more difficult proposition for the other teams.
Well, for me personally, when I look at Carson Wentz, I love him as an individual. As a player at that position, quarterback position, it's more than just making plays yourself. It's can you elevate the guys around you? And so when you talk about Russell Wilson, I feel like that's what he does because of his playmaking ability. When quarterbacks start to do too much, it's either for one or two reasons. It's because they have to, because they're trying to make everyone around them better, or they're doing too much because they're trying to do something that is more than what their capabilities can afford them. And that's what I saw with Carson Wentz. You talk about injuries. Everybody can talk about injuries. I've even said it. But he's been a part of that injuries cycle. He's been a part of that injury carousel. So when you look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, he's been just as much a part of the reason why they haven't been successful, both for injury and his lack of production on the football field when they need him to be productive. And at that position, when you look at Indy and their situation, I'm not trying to get a guy that's leading the league and throwing the ball to the other team. Like, that's not what I'm signing up for. That's not how we get better. That's not how we improve if we're trying to look at rosters that can improve and take the next step. You look at a quarterback like Carson Wentz, that's what he's done, and that's who he is right now on paper and on tape and on film. That's what he's providing me, so I'm not interested in him at Indy.
But he's going to finger point.
Right.
He's going to be a finger pointer.
LeVar, stick around. Could LeBron have made it in the NFL? LeBron thinks so. Tell us your thoughts next. First things first.
Woo. Yeah, I could.
All right, we got LeVar back with us. It's time to start the No Huddle. Let's start with Tom Brady. He tweeted, "You're welcome to join anytime," along with a hype video as NFL free agency looms. So, LeVar, would you want to join Tom in Tampa if you were an NFL free agent?
Absolutely. But that hype video was sales. He was moving his brand. So, but let's be clear, that was a hidden innuendo to the JJ Watts out there and other guys to come be a part of the Tom Brady way, as it will now be referenced, not the Patriot way, the Tom Brady way in Tampa Bay.
I'm with you.
What about you?
I'm with you there. I'm with him there, man. I'm joining every night of the week.
Go.
And when you look at the reasons why guys would be so intrigued by it, it's because of Tom Brady and how he embraces teammates and how he makes everyone feel like they're the most important part and piece to the puzzle. That's what you love. That's leadership at its best. It's not just about his production on the football field. It's like I said earlier about LeBron James, elevating so many other guys and then allowing them to be a part of something special. It's like almost guaranteed. Like, you're going to have some success when you play with Tom Brady, and to LeVar, your point, the Tom Brady way.
Indeed. All right, I've got a little different perspective. I want to hear your guys' response to this. To me, if I were an NFL free agent, it would depend on where I'm at in my career. Now, if I'm an older guy like a J.J. Watt, yeah, I'm looking hard at Tampa Bay to go get that Super Bowl. I've gotten my money. If I'm Chris Godwin and I've gotten my Super Bowl ring, I'm a receiver. It's not like they measure them like they do for quarterbacks. If another team offers me huge money and this is my chance for a payday, I got to go take it and say bye to Tom in the Tom Brady way. Even if I'm Shaq Barrett, now I think they need to bring Shaq back. But if they don't give him the money he deserves and somebody else is offering it, Shaq, I think he got to go get paid too. You guys know how short these careers are. Am I bugging or do you agree?
You're not bugging. It's just all in how you approach it. But I got to be honest. If I'm a free agent and I can get more value to go somewhere else that isn't with Tom Brady, much love to you, Tom Brady. We're going to share this ring forever. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this contract in Cleveland or Chicago or Detroit. I'm going to just go ahead and do it, you know.
I'm with you. And I've been in that position where, I was with the Packers and ended up being free agent. And the Vikings came with a much better deal. And everyone's like, well, why would he ever leave the Green Bay Packers? Well, for a couple of reasons. It was a better situation for my family. It was better financially for me. And just it was better all around when it came to that. Like, the football will take care of itself. I'm still going to be what I can be for any team that I'm on. Now, the results may look different. And the guy who throwing me the ball definitely looked different. But like you said,
that ain't your fault.
Thank you, Tom Brady.
That ain't your fault.
Exactly. I appreciate you, Tom, and I love what we had. And we can keep our relationship from a distance, but I got to move on.
No regrets about leaving Aaron Rodgers, huh?
No, not emphasis. Again, you're right. You are right. We did. But when you think about what you said, at the stage of my career, I was still young enough I could still go, and I was being offered more. And to stay in that situation and take less, like everybody's like, yeah, you should do that. But when they are in that position in corporate, it doesn't matter where you are. If your competitor offers you more, you're going to consider that. You're going to consider that. I don't care who you are. Like, that's you. Yes, you love the people that you're working with, and that's great. That's awesome. But you know what? Maybe we can be friends on Facebook, on social media. But I got to go over here because they breaking me off.
Well, look, let's move to another quarterback who's not aging as gracefully as Tom Brady. Big Ben, he's set to meet this week with Steelers brass to determine what his future holds. LeVar, you're a Pittsburgh guy. Are the Steelers better off with or without Big Ben next season?
It's such a difficult question to ask, being a homer and a fan of the team. But I will say this, they have a ton of, it is, they have a lot of free agents. Pouncey just retired. This is probably, as painful as it is to say, it's probably the best and the most opportune time to make a move and a shift to go in a different direction, because you're going to be rebuilding in so many different ways. Are you going to bring Juju back? What are you going to do with your offensive backfield? What are you going to do with your offensive line? What are you going to do with Bud Dupree? What are you going to do with this defense? It's a lot of up in the air questions about what you're going to do as an organization. And generally speaking, the Pittsburgh Steelers do an excellent job of being able to fill the gap of the voids left by guys that they let go due to not signing them back due to free agency or other reasons. So I think this is probably the best time for them to probably separate themselves from Big Ben if they're going to.
I agree. It's definitely the time, and it's not painful for me to say it. Big Ben doesn't provide them what's needed right now at this stage in his career. And when you look at those highlights that we were just looking at, we saw Claypool down the field. That is what Big Ben lived and ate off of for his entire career, extending the play, being off script, and getting the ball down the field to put pressure on defenses. It's something that they weren't able to do. I mean, they just threw underneath all day long, trying to kind of create this horizontal passing game to be an extension of their run game. But when you look at guys on the perimeter, and I know they had a ton of drop, but these Claypool in particular did not get enough opportunities down the field in the second half of that season where he thrives. And when you look at building a team, and you talked about Mike Pouncey retiring at the center, that's a whole nother conversation to be had when you lose that rapport and that relationship and that camaraderie with the most important piece of who's going to hike you the ball and who's going to call some of those defensive fronts and things like that. So I like for Ben to just ride off into the sunset. And not the best way. I get it, LeVar. It stings a little bit, but go ahead, man. And you had a great career, Hall of Famer. Congrats to you.
Go ahead, enjoy.
I hear you guys. Yeah, I mean, they could save some money by getting rid of Ben, but the Steelers, I look at them more as a team that reloads rather than rebuilds. They rarely hit rock bottom. And I know they lost a lot of guys, as you mentioned, LeVar. So maybe this is going to be a year they do that. But there's a part of me thinking, run it back. Now, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They're not going to get back to the Super Bowl. But they could maybe be a playoff team again. You know, and what's the alternative? Do I believe in Dwayne Haskins, who they just picked up? Any of their other quarterbacks? Like, they don't have a viable option. So I'm looking at it like, if I bring Ben back, we just won 12 games. Maybe we win 10, 11, make the playoffs again. It's not the Super Bowl, but it's not bad. We get to look at Dwayne Haskins for a year. We can have him learn from Big Ben, see if he could be our guy going forward. And I think they could look at doing something like that. Now, obviously, if they can go out and get a Deshaun Watson, that's the move. Do you guys think they have a chance at getting a Deshaun? That's somewhere he might want to go. Or should they even be in the market for a Carson Wentz? LeVar, let's start with you.
I can't see either one of those happening. And I would say this, as a Steelers team and organization, they don't get the luxury of being able to say, we're going to just see what happens with Dwayne Haskins and put the season on if you could possibly develop Haskins. If you keep Ben Roethlisberger, you're saying that you still feel as though this current team and roster has the opportunity and the ability to compete for a Super Bowl. So you're not going to get some of the, I guess, passes that you would get if you move on from Ben Roethlisberger and you show that this team is looking to go into a different direction. I think it would be a bad decision, honestly, business-wise, to bring Roethlisberger back at this point. And that's hurtful.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I just, when you look at this division, and Deshaun Watson would be a great acquisition. I don't think it will happen. But if they are able to make that happen, you do it. You definitely do it, because now you're back up at the forefront of having one of the better quarterbacks in your division. When you look at Ben Roethlisberger and their current, I understand that, LeVar, but when you look at their roster right now, in that division, Ben Roethlisberger is now either 3 or 4 when it comes to quarterbacks. In that division, you got Joe Burrow, you got Baker, you got Lamar, and then where does Ben fall? He's not at the top anymore. He's at the bottom. Sorry, man.
Watson.
It hurts. It's
contract. No way.
All right, guys. Let's stay in that region of the country, the Midwest. That's LeBron James in high school catching passes. All right, the King was asked or talking about the tryouts he was offered by the Cowboys and the Seahawks back in 2011, and that he said this, quote, "I would have made the team." Now, LeVar, are you buying LeBron's claim that he would have made the NFL had he tried?
Well, I mean, more often than not, guys that have played basketball are always tight ends. You look at Tony Gonzalez and
Right.
Antonio Gates. I mean, those guys were basketball guys that converted into playing football. I don't know what position LeBron would want to play, but athletically speaking, I'm pretty certain he would do more than just make the team, Chris. I'm assuming that it would be very difficult. If you're looking at if he learned how to run routes, could he be a better tight end than any tight end in the game right now? We like Kittle. We like Kelsey. Would LeBron James be a better tight end than those guys? I mean, potentially speaking, you look at his athletic ability, and if he really put in that time, I think whatever position that he want to play, defensive end, tight end, receiver, quarterback, I think he's a good enough athlete that he could actually be a dominant player wherever he worked the play at.
Yeah, there is no doubt that he would make a team. If he came out of high school wanting to play football, he would be on the NFL roster right now, still playing potentially. And when you look at, I've had experience with teammates who played basketball and who transitioned into playing football, and then some who did both in college. And so when you look, it's easier, like you said, LeVar, for a guy to make that transition from basketball to football. I preferred basketball, but I ended up playing football because it came so much easier and naturally for me to go up and make jump contested throws and catches and different things like that. And then my athletic ability took over. That's the same with LeBron. If he had the opportunity to practice, to run routes, to sharpen those skill sets, of course he would have made a team.
Did you just compare yourself to LeBron? Did you?
That's the only way I could compare myself to LeBron.
Did you just compare yourself to LeBron in an example of if he would be able to play football? G&J, I really love your game. I love your athletic ability. I love your weightlifting videos. It's so inspirational. Your scriptures of the day, but please don't insult King LeBron like that ever again during the course of a live TV show.
I'm glad you caught that, LeVar. He slid in a little humble brag. You know, he slid in a little humble brag.
It's the only way I would ever be able to compare myself to that type of a caliber individual.
Take advantage. It was good. I liked it.
LeVar, weren't you recruited? Did you get recruited by Georgetown for basketball?
I did. I wasn't going to humbly flex, but I was a D1. I was a D1 recruit to play basketball. I was on the circuit. I played against a lot of those guys, Marbury, Samaki Walker, Antoine Walker, all those guys. Yeah. That was my time. Donald Foyle. I played against all those guys. Kareem Reed. I was on the circuit at that time. I just stopped growing.
Well, I'm going to humbly flex.
Go ahead.
I am going to humbly flex.
Go ahead, Greg. I know you were killing them in Kalamazoo.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I got more D1 offers in basketball than I did in football. So, and
there you go.
I mean, I put up 50 in a game against the number one team in the state in high school. What, and we want to rehash? Well, I can rehash. I'm messing with you, LeVar. But those are facts. You can fact check that.
I can vouch for Greg. I saw him up in L.A. at the Fox Sports 1 studio destroying Mike Buckland, who runs, he's one of the executives at Fox. Greg was just killing him. It was embarrassing for Mike. So I can vouch for his game. But no, getting back to LeBron, look, LeBron was all-state as a wide receiver his sophomore year in Ohio. And you guys know Ohio is a hotbed for football. It's one of the top states in the country for football, And that school he went to, St. Vincent St. Mary, sent like 5 guys to the NFL. I'm with you guys. I think LeBron not only could have made the NFL, I think he would have been a superstar. I picture him as a tight end. And Antonio Gates, we know he played, at Kent State basketball. He goes to pick up football in the NFL and becomes an all-time great tight end. Yeah. So I think LeBron.
Don't forget about Julius Peppers either.
There you go.
Julius Peppers.
Yeah. So I think LeBron could have been a great tight end. I like tight end. I don't know. You think it may be defensive end for him, LeVar? I like him more as a tight end.
He's an athlete. It'd be what he wants to do. I mean, it's brilliance. It's athletic brilliance.
Well, that's why he's LeBron. But we're gonna switch gears and talk Seahawks. Have the Seahawks wasted away the Russell Wilson era? have that next on First Things First.
Yeah. All right, time now for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Subway. We've got former Pro Bowl linebacker LeVar Arrington with us, talking some Russell Wilson. A report came out yesterday that the Seahawks will in fact not trade Russ. This despite the quarterback's frustration with the poor protection plan that Seattle has for him. So, Greg, let's start with you. Has Seattle wasted the Russell Wilson era?
This is tough, but unfortunately, I believe they have. And I'm one that likes to look at the writing on the wall and look back and see, just like Russell Wilson has possibly done over the course of other guys' career in certain situations or similar situations, to see how they can maximize their career. How can they cement their legacy? And when you think about that, a guy who so early in his career was able to win a Super Bowl, get to a second, and lose to Tom Brady and those New England Patriots in the fashion that they did. He should have too, but he does not. And then they haven't gotten back. They haven't been able to get back to that level of play. Yes. And the reason why I say they have is because when you have a quarterback that is evolved and that has progressed to a point of where he's no longer just a guy who you can trust to make the right decision, or he's just going to manage the game, he's just going to help navigate your offense. Russell Wilson is your offense, and you haven't found a way to really embrace that from a head coaching perspective. And Pete Carroll, I think that they have wasted his time in the Seattle era. When you look at the Green Bay Packers, and all has always been talked about Aaron Rodgers, and has his time been wasted in Green Bay and only having one Super Bowl appearance and one win? And the answer is yes, because when you have a talent like Aaron, like Russell Wilson, you have to maximize it. And I'm not saying it's easy, LeVar. I know it's not easy, but when you have a standard of being one of those teams that is going to always have a chance to win, you got to find a way to win when it's most important. And that is in the postseason when it counts the most. LeVar, is that you giving me the little blow off?
That was me with the little blow off like this. Look, I did like this. Listen, let's start at that Super Bowl that you said should have been his second Super Bowl. Wasting Russell Wilson's era? Let's see. That Super Bowl play to win the second Super Bowl was notoriously, not famously, but infamy. It lives in infamy that they did not, Chris Broussard? Give the ball to beast mode. Beast mode. All right. Now, you put the game into Russell Wilson's hands, and he throweth away. Giveth Super Bowl number 2 away. Russell Wilson should not only be not feeling as though his time has been wasted, Russell Wilson is chasing a Russell Wilson era to begin with. They have made the playoffs pretty much every single year that Russell Wilson has been a part of this team. I believe 8 out of 9 of his seasons in Seattle. Now, if I look at the linchpin for each one of these cabooses, linchpin going on to, what you attach your train, stuff to pull it and all that stuff, the linchpin, it's not Russell Wilson. It was Richard Sherman. It was Cam Chancellor. It was Bobby. Well, come on, what's Bobby's last name? What's Bobby Wagner. It was who's my safety? Who's Earl Thomas? It was Marshawn Lynch. There was too many other factors as to why this Seattle team was dominant. So if anything, GJ, it ain't about wasting Russell's era. Russell needs to find an era before his era can be wasted, because that era belonged to the Legion of Boom and to Beast Mode. And that's what it is. And that's why Russell Wilson is freaking out, trying to get more help so that he can solidify his own Super Bowls. But he threw that away. So I don't see him being wasted at all. You ask me.
Look, obviously that pass he made, I mean, he threw the ball. So you can't totally absolve him of that. But I put more of that blame on Pete Carroll. Because that play, as we all know, never should have been called. Really? I'm not absolving Russ, but that play call we all know was horrible. That made Matt LaFleur's call a few weeks ago look like genius. I mean, that was terrible. But so I do think he should have to. But you're right. He threw the pass. All right. However, I wouldn't go as far to say they've wasted it, Greg, because he's only been out of the Super Bowl 6 years. And he's only 32, and he wants to play much longer. And we know now quarterbacks are playing longer. There is a blueprint for him to play another decade. So he's not where Aaron is. They've wasted Aaron's time, that's for sure. But they have not yet wasted Russell's. Remember, Tom Brady went a decade without a Super Bowl win and then ran off another dynasty. So I still think there's time for Russell in Seattle to do what's right and start getting back to the Super Bowl if they shore up the offensive line and get a bit more innovative offensively. LeVar hating on both sides today.
I'm not hating. I'm just saying that ain't what it is. That's not the recipe.
Well, Chris, you said that it's been 6 years since Russ has been to the Super Bowl. Well, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we were saying it's been 6 years for Aaron Rodgers. And now where are we? We're still saying, oh, he hasn't been back, so they wasted his time. Russell Wilson is trying to get out in front of that, which is why he's lobbying. What you said, LeVar, I agree. You said what?
It's over for Russ like this show. Hey, I'm out of here. It's over for Russ. It's over for this show. I'm out of here. Bye, y'all. Bye.
It is over for us. Undisputed is next.
Need to go do some more research.